What's going on, guys? Welcome to April's episode of Game of the Month, the show where we pick a game at random every month, and at the end of the month, we talk about it. My name's Seth, and joining me today is Chevy on my left, your right. Chevy, we just filmed Plus Club, where we talked about, Meet Your Maker, Sackboy, A Big Adventure, and Tales of Iron. Hopefully everybody will go check that out. But since that episode, how you doing?
Good. Got some caffeine. I'm a little more awake than I was.
Yeah, we got some caffeine in between shooting, and then I played Omega Strikers. Which is a free-to-play game that I was having more fun with than I thought I would, and kept playing it. And I was like, we got to keep filming, so we're here doing that. That's good, though. Glad you're doing good. And I recommend everybody go check out Plus Club, because we had a good conversation there. Game we played in April was Wild Hearts, which we will be talking about today. But before we do that, we have to pick a brand new at random game of the month for May. Now, for anybody new here, we have a wheel here. It has some random back burner games we want to play on the wheel. We're going to spin it. Whatever lands on will be our game of the month in May, which obliges us to have to play it at some point, and we will. So yeah, for anybody listening though, on the wheel currently we have Halo Infinite, Temtem, Elder Scrolls Online, Dead Cells, World War Z, Monster Hunter Rise, Outriders, Evil Dead the game, Back for Blood, No Man's Sky, Second Extinction, Nier Replicant, Final Fantasy XIV has returned back on the list 'cause it's been long enough, Age of Empires 4, Last Epoch, and I added Omega Strikers after playing it. So we'll see how long that lasts on the list. Maybe it'll come off within a month. But yeah. Anything to say before we find out what the game of the month is for May?
Unless something comes up, it looks like we'll have time to play whatever we get. So
Yeah, for sure. This seems like an easy month when it comes to PlayStation Plus at the least.
For sure.
So be a good month for a deeper game, possibly like Nier Replicant or Final Fantasy XIV maybe. But yeah, let's just find out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to click this in 3, 2, 1, and go. It is spinning. We're going to find out what we're playing in May. It's starting to slow down, and we are creeping towards Age of Empires or Last Epoch.
Easy.
Which is very interesting because last month, or this April, we were supposed to be playing Wild Hearts. At the beginning, we were playing a lot of Last Epoch.
Understatement.
Yeah, so now we will just be playing that this month and conveniently talking about it since it's still kind of a fresh memory because I haven't been playing it lately, but I could definitely see myself playing it again. Chevy, what do you think?
I think it'll be an easy game to play because, like you said, we already kind of were playing it. In the end game at this point with one character, not max level, so still some leveling that can be done. And I made a bunch of other characters that I haven't tried, so still stuff for me to do. I just took a break because I kind of cracked out for a while.
Yeah, I get that, and I also got to the end game with one character, but I've only played like 2 other types of characters, so I'll probably try something I haven't played yet. And I didn't mention this, but in case you're wondering what Last Epoch is, it's a top-down isometric ARPG similar to Diablo. So I think it's only on PC as of right now. They just added multiplayer like a month ago. So this is definitely a game that you're only going to be able to play if you're on PC, which kind of sucks. Always kind of sucks playing only PC games for the show when it comes to these. But game of the month, it's our back burner. So
it's an early access game, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not even out yet.
Yeah. So once it maybe fully releases, we can add it again to the list because there are subclasses missing and a couple other things. So, but yeah, really interesting. That last month I jokingly was like, I should have just picked Last Epoch since we're playing it, and now we're playing it this month. So, works for me. Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Let us know in the comments what do you guys think about Last Epoch. Are you excited to be playing that? And if you're not able to play because you're on console, is it a game you want to play? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so we got a game we played this month, and that game was Wild Hearts. If you didn't get a chance to play Wild Hearts, it is essentially Monster Hunter. And if you don't know what Monster Hunter is, you play in a group of up to 4 hunters going on missions to hunt down monsters, defeat the monsters, which are essentially big glorified boss battles. And once you defeat those monsters, you get resources. Those resources go into crafting new weapons and armors that have their own stats that you can kind of lean into specific ways of fighting whatever weapon type you're using. The game features multiple weapon types similar to Monster Hunter, ranging from swords, hammers, a cannon, bow and arrow, claw blade, which is what I use. We'll talk about it, and many other weapons. Not as much as Monster Hunter, but it's got plenty for the game just coming out. And yeah, the game features multiple maps with many monsters they've added since the game has released. And yeah, you run around, you just fight big monsters and hope you don't die. We both played it in April, and let's have you start us off with your impressions of Wild Hearts.
Okay. Well, played on PC. And I'm sure as any PC gamer knows, the story of 2023 so far is AAA game comes out on PC and is not ready to release on PC yet.
Yeah.
So Wild Hearts is not well optimized.
We're hearing that about Star Wars right now as well.
Yeah, again. So it has some stuttering issues. They have made it a little better, but it still happens.
Before we dive in too far, too, I've looked into this many times because I'm still getting the stutters from when the game came out to now. I played today, so I was getting stutters. I was looking into it. It kind of helped, but it's better, but it's still there. If you're on PC, go into audio options and switch stereo to 7.1. It will improve the stuttering. So that's me trying to help you out if you're playing and you're getting those stutters. Whatever the reason, the audio is affecting the game, which is not the first time I've seen that in a game. And then also I'd recommend locking your FPS at 60. I know you want the unlimited, but that'll help. And then at the very bottom, there's 3 things you can unclick. They're not... I forgot it's like ambient occlusion and 2 other things above that. Unclick those, and there's one other thing, anti-aliasing. But that's impossible. I don't want to turn that down, but a lot of people say to do that. But those are the big things I found that help improve that stutter, which is still a fucking problem and definitely going into my grade.
Yeah, I did the audio one because when I first booted up the game, Chris told me to do it. So I was like, all right. So that being said, it doesn't play as smooth as it could. Fortunately, I don't get the stutters often. Mm-hmm. It's occasional, so it doesn't like completely ruin my experience. But it does happen. So, yeah, I mean, general impressions of the game, I think it's a pretty good looking game. They have a pretty cool art style. I still am not like 100% sold on the way the monsters look. I don't dislike them, but they all kind of have like a samey look to me, at least. And I think that just kind of comes down to the nature of whatever's growing out of most of them most of the time. Mm-hmm. It's just the aesthetic, but I would like to see a little more extreme variety. But that is a nitpick. Not really enough to knock it, but it is something I noticed at first glance when playing the game. Before the game came out, I remember watching videos and seeing I think it's called the Katakuri system.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I'd like it. And playing the game, I don't like it. So I could go without that. I use it because it's intended. The game is intended for you to use it. But I use it very minimally because I just I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it. But also, for some context, in Monster Hunter, I don't use a lot of traps or anything either. I just want to fight. So
yeah, that's one thing I didn't mention too when I was doing the explanation of what the game is for anybody who didn't play it, because the big thing that this game differentiates itself from Monster Hunter is the Katakuri system that is essentially being able to build things on the fly, similar to like how Fortnite works, how you can just build shit as you're shooting at people. This has a similar thing going on. So
yeah, I've only tried a couple weapons so far. They make you start with a single-handed katana, I think, because there's also a larger one you can get. And then I made the hammer, and I use that currently. I need to try more of the weapons. I like the hammer. I don't love the hammer.
Yeah, I was using the hammer before I moved on to the claw blade. Which is weird because I don't like heavy weapons in games like this typically. I like mobility, but the move set with the hammer was just so much fun and super satisfying when you do he has like a spinning move, and if you maintain it at the very end, he'll do this like big strike, and to get that successfully is super gratifying. But yeah, once I got the claw blade, I was just like, this is my weapon.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I've noticed so far from the two weapons I've used, and then watching people use other weapons, is they really similar to Monster Hunter. Wanted every weapon to kind of have like, for lack of a better way to word it, a gimmick or a mechanic that it does, which is a good thing. You're not just like mindlessly hitting, though I do think it's important to have some weapons for that. And I think the hammer is one of those weapons. It has a mechanic, but I think it's probably one of the simpler ones to do.
It's got a timing mechanic that extends the handle.
Yeah.
And does more damage.
But I need to play around with more of the weapons to see if I can find one that I like. I really like, because otherwise, I mean, it's fine. The crafting system is an interesting take on crafting in these games. I kind of like and just need to understand a little better. But I do kind of like the way you go down and you collect substats as you go through to kind of create like this perfect weapon for you by the time you get to the end of this skill tree. And what I mean by that is you have like 3 starting points, and you get the tree branches off a bunch of different directions, and you'll grab the first one will have like 1 passive, and you go to the second weapon, it'll have a second passive, and you initially have 2 slots available, so you get to keep both of those. And eventually you get to a point where you have so many options for those as you're working down and killing new monsters, unlocking new types, that you have to start picking and choosing which passives you want. And you can't backtrack, so you have to commit to a path. You can go up, but you can't ever recross a line you've already done. So it's an interesting system and allows you to kind of like play with your substats a lot. And I think that's a fun take. I think it's probably one of the best things they've done, for this type of game to make themselves different from Monster Hunter. And I think it's something they should keep going forward and expand upon.
Yeah, it's neat to essentially have your passives carry over, and then eventually you have to start eliminating what passives are less important for you every time you make a new weapon. So you can kind of not only just craft a new weapon that might have like fire or whatever, but also some of those things you really like from prior weapons you can bring with you to this weapon, and you could really strategize building your weapons into something that you can get something really crazy out of.
Well, and then like so like in and I sorry I keep bringing up Monster Hunter, but it's literally like the best example for this game.
Monster Hunter created the genre, so I mean,
in Monster Hunter, a lot of times you're piecing together pieces of armor and your weapon to kind of like make a build, and you're doing the same in this, but it allows you to also like instead of using the what is that system called, talisman or whatever system in Monster Hunter, in this you have some stuff like that too, but this also kind of acts as like a substitute for that system. And it's just in your weapon. So I don't know. Interesting take. I think it works well, and I actually do like that part of it a lot. So the Katakuri also has a skill tree, but it seems less of a skill tree as much as like an inevitability you're going to have all of them.
Yeah, it's progression.
Yeah.
You can choose that progression, but eventually you're just going to have everything unlocked.
Yes.
And so like you'll have certain Katakuri you can use, and then when you buy a part of the skill tree later, it might just upgrade one of the categories you already have, and you will eventually get that, but you just have choice in what to prioritize.
Sure,
first.
At whatever point in the game you're at. But
and some of that is that progression's held back by the monsters you've hunted, so there's definitely story elements of the game that for balance reasons they don't only have certain category unlocked yet.
Yeah, and I don't hate that system, but I also don't think it adds a whole lot, so I think that probably doesn't have to exist. They can come up with a new way for you to unlock that. So
it's just one interaction above like use this category enough, and all since like this is level 2 and it has a new thing.
Sure. It feels like an extra unnecessary step, but I don't think it's so much of a jumping through hoop that it's annoying, but it is kind of, I think, a step in a little bit of the wrong direction.
Yeah, my perspective on that is I like it, but I don't think it adds much. I just think the interactivity tricks my brain into thinking that like it's like a skill tree, and I'm like, interacting with it. Yeah. So it scratches the itch, but then when you think about it, especially if you beat the game, it's like well, I'm not going to have things other people don't have. We're all just going to get there eventually.
Yeah.
So it is just progression. And I do like it, but it's not amazing.
Yeah. And I just think it could be reworked to be a little more interesting as well.
Yeah.
I think the system for the new category unlocks is kind of interesting, where you have to have a couple conditions, which is usually fight said boss and have these particular category equipped, and then an event will happen during the fight by chance, and you'll get a quick time event, and if you succeed, you unlock a new category. And I think that's a neat way to kind of add, like, it's almost like how do I word this? It's like winning a jackpot, type of feeling almost. You're like, oh, that's the thing I need. And, it obviously feels bad if you mess up the QT. They're pretty forgiving, so you should be able to get them. But you can screw them up.
I've fucked it up twice before just because I was in the middle of fighting and I wasn't expecting it to happen. I was already clicking something at a certain time. But yeah, they are pretty fair for the most part. And also plays the sound for other players so they know that's happening.
Yeah.
Because I was playing earlier and I heard the drop sound, and somebody was doing it. But
every time it happened to me, Chris, like, all of a sudden he's like, oh, and he backed up.
Yeah. So. I fought one of the new kimonos, which are the monsters, and which it's like a cherry blossom wolf or whatever. It's pretty neat. But I unlocked the Beyblade category where you just shoot the top.
Let them rip.
It's pretty neat because if they're in like kind of a clustered area, it just bounces around and keeps doing damage. So it's neat because it's funny. I didn't realize they were going to add new category to the game either. I thought they're just going to add monsters, but with new monsters, they're adding new moves too. So it's kind of neat.
Well, and the system does allow them to kind of just make up whatever they want with it, because you're basically building wooden toys. So
yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that system is going to be take it or leave it for people. So
100%. When I talk about my impressions, we're not on the same page, which is 100% fine. But like we had the same perspective going into the game of we were both like, I don't know if that's going to be cool. Prove me wrong. And for you were like, yeah, I knew I wasn't going to be into it. But for me, I really like the system. I think they did a good job with it. So it is 100% a take it or leave it situation.
Yeah, well, and just to re-emphasize as well, it's not I'm not into it because, any big, deep reason other than, like, I don't use items that much in Monster Hunter either.
Well, yeah, I think you explained it well enough. Yeah. Like, fucking, you don't want to do that. The only difference is in Monster Hunter, it's an option. It's a big option that helps a lot, but it's an option. In this, it's an option, but the game was built around this thing.
Some of the landscape, it's not optional, but yeah.
So, the game was designed that you're going to use the category. Yeah. Like, it's part of the game. You can not do it. I fight sometimes without using it because I'm just like, this thing's easy. But, it's the game was built around it. So, it's going to affect you more in this game than in Monster Hunter. Because I don't use traps much in Monster Hunter either. I typically just expect somebody else to do it. Because I'm like, eh.
Yeah, well, and I'm usually kind of fortunate in the regard that, like, when I play with Chris likes trapping monsters, so I'm just like, you do it.
Yeah, Josh will do it too sometimes. So yeah, I'm on the same page.
Yeah. So let's see what else. This game's camping system is a little bit different. Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter, you find a place. Usually, you donate resources, and then it becomes a camp. In this, you find a place and you build the camp, which I do think is a fun system because you can kind of choose where to put your camps. There are some places that are definitely like designed to be campsites, but as long as you have enough spots unlocked, which I'll get to that here in a second, you can just build a camp anywhere. And then that could be a tent. You can put a blacksmith table, a fireplace. There's this like radar system so that you can ping and find the monsters and stuff like that.
There's decorative stuff too, and there's resource gathering stuff, and
yeah, and it's a neat take on the camp thing. I do like that part of it, and I was a little worried for the resource aspect of it because you're limited on how many of element A, B, C, D, E, etc. you can have and build with. But there's these little circles on the ground. I can't remember what they're called. It's like dragon something. But you activate them with certain resources, and then you can level them up. I think up to like 6 times or something like that. And
4 or 5.
It allows you to have more and more resources on the map. When I first saw that, I was worried because I was like, I'm going to have to remember where this is and run back to it every time. No, you can open the map and just dump resources in once you've unlocked it. So you don't even have to go back to it ever again. So thank you. Makes that way easier. Yeah. The hub is pretty good. It's better once you have Katakuri to like make paths across the giant opening in the middle, which I'm sure was intentional, but I kind of hate.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I like really simple like hubs. I don't want to run across the place and all over the place type of thing. Aesthetically, it makes sense and it fits, and so I'll give them credit for that regard. Just in a convenience way, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a hassle. So nitpicky. It's not going to go into my grade. Just expressing my thoughts on that one. There are some cosmetic items like masks, horns, flowers, hairpins, etc. They're pretty neat. I have a boar mask on right now, I think, and I love the way it looks. So,
how far are you in the game? What's the last
chapter 4? Or
chapter 4.
Like
Okay.
So,
Yeah, there's only 5 chapters, so.
So there's some pretty cool stuff there.
You fought Amaterasu, or the fuck its name is. Okay. So you saw how the place can change. I'll just keep it that. I don't know. I don't want to spoil this for somebody possibly who doesn't.
Your hit points going up by collecting materials and unlocking special hot spring things is welcome as well. I like systems like that where collecting resources get permanent increases, stuff like that. The gathering is really simple, very similar to any of the new Monster Hunters. You can just run by stuff, mashing a button, and pick everything up. So that's nice.
What about the little robot guys? What do you think of those?
I think they're okay. I don't think their AI is as good as like the Palicos and Palamutes, but this is their first game, so I'm not going to...
Oh, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about... Yeah, you're talking about if you're playing by yourself, you have a companion that helps out. I mean, collecting those.
Yeah, no, well, so that's basically EXP for that single-player guy, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it also upgrades the amount of...
resources,
thread you can have.
Oh, thread, yeah.
So
and stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff, right? And especially because they're hiding. There's also little lore things like swords and scrolls all over the place. I like, especially because you're doing the map so many times, right?
Which give you weapon specific talismans too, which is pretty cool. It
Yeah.
gives you a reason to actually explore the maps.
And it definitely feels very inspired from Monster Hunter in that regard, but their own take on it. There are a ton of those little wooden dolls, so it's there's a lot of them. Some of the maps have like 50, so like it's crazy how many to find. And if you're that kind of like player where you want to just like find and collect stuff, it's there.
Well, but what's cool about that though is I'm not that guy, but I want to collect them all because it gives you actual.
Right.
It changes how the game plays. You get more threads. You can do more katakuri.
Yeah. Let's see. I have some nitpicks I want to get off my chest, and then I'll probably just pass it to you and see if I can comment.
Well, I'll be brief. I think you've covered a lot.
I think the controls are usually good, and then occasionally super janky all of a sudden. And I don't understand that. Like sometimes, like trying to grab onto things, just I'll grab and then fall.
Are you playing with the controller, mouse, and keyboard?
Controller.
Okay. Because I'm also playing with the controller.
Specifically, when you're trying to climb on monsters, it feels like sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I never climb on monsters, so I don't.
It's a good way to like supercharge your thread. So if you pull,
I play with the claw blades, so I'm typically in the air, flying around and shit. So it's no reason to be climbing on monsters mostly.
Yeah, I mean the only benefit it really has, like let's say you have like 20 thread and you hop on, you pull in those spots out. Now you have 45 for a temporary amount of time. So.
Gotcha.
The enrages are expected, but I do think they do it a lot in this game. And there's this weird thing where if they're enraged when they leave, they calm down when they leave, but as soon as you show up, they instantly rage again. And it's weird that you have to go through the animation a second time instead of them just still being pissed off when you get to them. Nitpick this, but it's.
I don't mind that they're enraged, but I agree they are enraged a lot. It's not a rare event.
They also run a lot.
Like just kicking their ass too quick at that point. It's probably 'cause you had Chris with you.
It's kind of
because they have like a point where they'll run, and so you just
or if they don't like the part of the map they're in,
yeah,
like because like the big I guess the boar guy or whatever, if he's in a small spot, he'll fight for a little bit. He's like, nah, I don't want, and he wants a bigger area because he's a big model. I get it, but it's like, why stop there in the first place? Like, there's just some lessons. Obviously, I think they need to take forward when doing this kind of stuff because these aren't game breaking things. They're weird instances that I'm like, okay, this could be done a little better. Okay, this could be done a little better. And I think that's one of them is they'll just run off and then sometimes stop in places they don't want to be and they'll run again as soon as you show up. So
I also wonder if they want you to be running across the map more frequently because you've put so much work into how you've built how you've built all the fucking things you have set up around the map that stay there. That I don't know, but I don't really notice them running around too often thing, but they do run. I feel when appropriate, but I do agree with the enraged thing for sure.
Yeah,
they're enraged like all the fucking time, almost more often than they're not.
Yeah, and then sometimes their tells are pretty minimal, which is I'm sure a choice, a preference for people if they give or take or don't care. I think they need to be a pinch more telegraphed. Sometimes some of them are really good, and I appreciate it, and they'll still hit you because they're so fast or whatever. I don't need them to like hold my hand, but sometimes they'll do an attack. I'm like, I didn't even see you doing that in the first place. So, and this could also be a perspective thing too because you're in the air and you can see a little better. The monsters in this game are ginormous, and so
they get really big.
Sometimes the camera will be in a weird spot too, and I don't know this. And the camera thing happens in Monster Hunter 2. This is that's something they need to work on as well. Is the camera will get in a weird spot and you can't see shit. So,
yeah, I think Monster Hunter monsters are pretty good about not. I think this game tells you pretty well just because if the monster's looking at you, it's aggro to you. And so most time if it goes to do anything, I just dodge because I assume it's going to do something.
I don't agree with that. There were plenty of times where it was looking at me, and then it would hit Chris, and then it was looking.
Well, sometimes
Chris,
they'll switch aggro quickly, but you can still typically see when it will turn.
Yeah, it'd be like mid attack.
But like in Monster Hunter, a lot of times they just fucking start swinging, hitting everybody.
Sure.
And some of them will do that for sure too. But like even in some of the footage you guys are gonna see here, I forgot what the hell it's called, but this bird I'm fighting, and anytime it looks at me and it goes to move, it starts shooting purple balls. I don't know what it's going to do, but I am able to dodge them because I know it's going to attack me. Which I think is something that, not that you aren't that you're unfamiliar with the game. You're chapter 4 now, but I think as you just fight the monsters more and more and more, you start getting used to that. But the aggro can switch pretty quick, which I think is intentional. I think it's good because it keeps you guessing.
Yeah, I just don't think to use that boss. At the end of 3 or whatever, the giant bird, it would change. When it was doing a giant dive, it'd be up in the air. You can't push the camera up high enough to look at it, so you don't know what it's doing.
Yeah, I always just start dodging just in case.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. The tell could be better, so I shouldn't have to guess or start spazzing out to dodge an attack. So, yeah, I don't know. So. Overall, I think the game is a very good alternative or secondary game. If you're into the Monster Hunter style of games, I think it's completely worth. This isn't necessarily a recommendation, but I think it definitely holds itself on its own in that genre and is a good alternative / second game, like I said, in that regard. It is definitely their first game. So I'm looking forward to see what they do
in this series, but they did make the Tokaiden and Tokaiden 2.
Sure, but they're not the same game. Yeah,
sure. I'm just saying they oddly enough have experience making Monster Hunter style games, which is kind of cool to see because Tokaiden I couldn't get into at all. So it's nice that they found something.
Oh no,
that
for
works.
Sure, and it's nice to have another IP with a budget that's in this genre. I like that about it. And
under EA,
and I want them to keep making and improving on it. But I do think it needs some work, but I definitely think it feels like it has an identity, which is good. I like it. I don't love it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, on that note, I think it's the best alternative to Monster Hunter that exists right now. Like if you're playing Monster Hunter and you're looking for something like Monster Hunter, there's some options. There's not a lot, but there's some out there. I think this is the best attempt that's happened so far.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Anything else?
No.
All right, I could be pretty quick about this. I think I like this game way more than I thought I was going to like this game. We were on the exact same page when we were originally seeing this game, and we both thought the Katakuri was going to be a gimmick. But otherwise, I thought the game looked pretty neat, and I was very surprised to have my mind changed. I've talked about it on Tastecast, so I'm not going to go too into that. But playing it this month just kind of reminded me of a couple things. Remind me of why I'll say I really love this game, but I also was reminded of they need to fix the stuttering, because it's been out now for a little bit and that needs to be fixed. I was like stoked to return to it this month and go like, oh, I'm sure they patched it. It's probably gone. It's not. I'm like, you guys are, releasing all these new monsters, which is fucking awesome to see how aggressive they're being about that, because this is their first game in this brand, and they're starting out good. They're like, we got brand new monsters to roll out already. I'm like, that's cool, but also can you roll out a patch to fix that fucking stuttering? Because there's people out there, figuring out that if you switch the stereo to 7.1, it helps a little bit. Well, if they're figuring that out, the people who made the game should be able to figure out what the fuck the problem is, because that's a hint if that helps a little bit. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's something that is definitely going to go into my grade, because I was upset to see that the stuttering's still there after, the amount of time this game's been out. But the stuttering aside, which is annoying as shit, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it just reminds me of like, oh, God, dude, that's stupid. Especially in a game where you need to be paying attention to what's happening. The combat can get pretty fast-paced. You're trying to dodge certain attacks, and also your game stutters, and I'm just like, that needs to get fixed. And it's across the board. So many people have experienced it. Doesn't matter what your setup is. So... Mm-hmm. It's inexcusable. They need to fix it. But yeah, outside of that, I think the game is really good looking. On a graphical level, it's good. But aesthetically, I really love it. It's very Japanese, very Japanese fantasy. I really dig that. I think the monsters are really cool. I thought they looked kind of generic before I played the game, and I still kind of think that. But also... what they do with their like nature abilities makes them more imaginative for me, and I think that's really cool. I also love the scale of the monsters, going from medium, smallish. None of them are that small.
Oh, so they're all
to
huge.
Really big, like the boar is gigantic. Especially when I'm playing the claw blade, it's nice to have this giant thing I'm flying around and hitting. The gorilla guy, whatever form you're fighting him, he's pretty big. Did you fight the indigo one? Yeah,
I don't remember.
He's blue.
I don't remember.
Oh. Yeah, he's like that guy, but crazier. Yeah, so I really like the monsters. I think they're neat. They're not as imaginative as Monster Hunter, and I'm not going to sit here and try and compare the two constantly, but it's hard not to, because this game wouldn't exist without it.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter has had time to
a lot of time
go beyond just like dragon monsters, because it has a lot of dragon monsters.
It was pretty wyvern heavy and like dinosaur heavy early on.
Yeah. But there's been many iterations, so they've been able to create a crazy roster of monsters that don't all fit into one game typically. They have to, bring back fan favorites and shit. So this game opted into mostly just being like, oh, this is like a rat monster, this is a boar monster, because it goes with the theme. They were just normal animals, and now they're, got this thing happening to them, and
they hunger for the spice.
Yeah, and I think it works really well, and I think they're cool. But again, it is just a boar until it does its crazy abilities. But I do like when they get enraged, because they change. Like the boar goes from just looking like a normal boar to like his tusks get gigantic, his eyes change. It's neat to see how the monsters transform. And then, their moves become more aggressive, all that shit. But yeah, it happens all the time, which is kind of weird. But I feel like they should balance that out a bit. But I've played the game so much at this point that I'm kind of just used to it at this point. Yeah, so monsters are cool. The aesthetic is cool. I like all the weapons. It doesn't have a huge roster of weapons, but it does have a varied roster that I would love to see more be added to. Like I said before, I played the Claw Blade, which is essentially a ninja. You have a blade and a claw. You hit them a bunch of times until you fill up a meter. Once that meter, well, you can do it any time, but you want the meter to be full because then you attach your claw onto the monster, which is great because they have weak points. And if you hit that weak point, you're targeting it, and then you're in the air floating, holding on to the blade and the chain between it. And you're able to dash in the air, which I love, and then fly in, attack until you've attacked like 4 or 5 times. You fly in and do a big chunk of damage, and it's really nice for prioritizing those weak spots. And like I said, I love the mobility. But before that, I liked the hammer quite a bit just because the move set. I wanted to like the umbrella weapon, but it's a parry weapon, and I hate parry weapons in games. I will parry if I have to, but it's not an option or a choice for me typically because I don't want to let you hit me. That's why I don't like blocking in games either. Like people who want to use a shield, I'm not that guy. I want to not get hit at all. So yeah, I humored the umbrella for a little bit, but then once I got the claw blade, I was like, no, this is what I was looking for. So, but there's a lot of cool weapons. I also like that, especially if you're playing with a mouse and keyboard, using the bow and arrow or the cannon starts to feel almost like an FPS, which is kind of cool because it just feels like a different play style than the melee weapons.
I actually have to anytime. I've not used a bow yet. I probably should try it, but
it's cool. I think
there's a
you'll like
mission
it.
where you have to use a cannon at some point.
That's when you unlock it, I think.
And I was sitting there with the joystick. I was like, "Oh my god, I hate this!" And what I ended up doing is I just held the controller in this hand and I grabbed the mouse.
I did the same thing with the with the bow and arrow.
Yeah.
I was playing half controller, half mouse, and I thought it was cool you could even do that. You should definitely check out the bow and arrow. I think you'd like it because it's essentially
the
just
only reason I didn't is
shoot it.
Scream was using it.
Oh. Yeah, you shoot, and then you shoot these one things that if you shoot them with the regular rounds, they blow up, and then it has like a rain arrow move that you have a circle on the ground shit. It's pretty neat. So anyway, I like the weapons. Weird one over the progression. I like that as well. The unlocking upgrades to the katakuri. I really like the crafting of weapons because, like we went over already, traits pass over. It gives you. One of my favorite things about this game is it has a lot of you have a lot of input on everything. So like when you're crafting weapons, you get to choose your passive. So now I'm making a build more so than I would be if I was just going, okay, I need the fire weapon or version of this weapon. And so you can get really creative with that system. The progression is a false sense of choice because eventually you're going to have everything unlocked. But I like it because it's progression. I love progression. It's not just, upgrading your gear. You're also getting XP essentially and being able to unlock new ways to use your gear. And then the campsites I think is really cool. I love it that whenever I join a random group of people or a friend, their campsites are different than mine, are set up different. And also all their ways to get around and gadgets and stuff on the map are completely different than mine. So it's neat to see them have their touch on the map. I think that's really fucking cool. The katakuri I really like, which I already went over, but I thought was going to be a gimmick, and it technically is a gimmick because it's their big thing. Yeah. But it's a good gimmick. I think it's really good, and I get if somebody doesn't want to use that, it's a huge focus of the game. Yeah. So you cannot use it if you don't want to. I'll gladly just use mine if you want to fight, but you are kind of missing out on what they spent a lot of time developing the game for.
Yeah. I forced myself to use it because it's like integrated into the system.
The game was designed for it. Yeah. And luckily it worked for me because I really enjoy just wailing on somebody and in that one moment just like dropping a hammer, it cocks back right at the right time, slams into the dude, does like 500 damage or whatever the hell. Just a quick, easy, free 500 damage. I almost said bucks. And $500. And to see that happen in just rapid succession while you're fighting and you're playing with other people and they're using theirs effectively is super satisfying. The one I spam a lot because I think it's a lot of fun is there's a harpoon katakuri that just locks onto the dude, shoots a harpoon into him with a rope. And it's nice because it interrupts them. So I use it a lot. like I'll just be like running at you, I'll drop it and keep running at them, and if it hits them, they get stunned for a second, not very long, but just a second, and I'll just start wailing on them, charging up my claw blade to attach myself. But also if they're in the air, it'll knock them down and you get a longer stun. So it's pretty much win-win. There's a while there when the game first came out where everybody had just unlocked the harpoon, and so everyone was just spamming that. They're just constantly getting stunned and hit. A lot of people moved on to more interesting Katakuri, but I still use it because it's a cheap and easy way to stop the monster in their tracks for a second. There's one later too that it's like 4 come out and they lock the dude in place, and it's really nice because you can sit there and wail on him. But
especially if you're trying to break parts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I really like the Katakuri. It's a lot of fun. I like the crafting. You mentioned the hub. I like the hub because just like the worlds, you get to craft things there as well. So every time you go to someone's hub, it's different. There's also, the game's been out for a little bit, so I'll just say it. There's a part of the game where something happens, and then after that, you get to start spending money and resources into dumping money. I had so much already that I never even noticed. But and the town starts getting built, and it's really neat to see the town over time, piece by piece, become bigger and bigger again. It kind of reminds me of that house in that town in Red Dead Redemption 2 when you're playing the single player. There's a house you see throughout the game to kind of give you a sense of time that's being built, and then eventually it's just complete. And I always really appreciated that. And apparently Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to have like that happening as well, which makes sense. But that this game even did that is like really neat. I didn't expect a game like this to use that as it's hard to talk about because there's like an event that happens and you feel like you're, rebuilding from it. But it's really neat. Also, the story's not amazing, but it's better than I thought it'd be.
I've been skipping it, so I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the story's cool. There's some darker elements to it, like a kid gets killed, which I thought was kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I heard that from Chris, because I was like, where's this person at? And Chris is like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay.
I also like, too, and I would like to see this in more games, that there's Japanese accents in the game. The characters all speak with Japanese accents, and it's supposed to be Japanese centric, and they're speaking in English, but like they have a
oh yeah, no, mine's in Japanese.
Oh really?
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean?
I think it's neat that even in English they just have Japanese people do the voice acting.
It does remind me though, whoever did the English subtitles subbed the game as if they were like a fan sub person from the early 2000s, because they pick and choose what words to translate. It'll be like blah 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 blah, and it'll say arigato. It won't say thank you. It'll say arigato. I'm like, why?
Maybe they just assume everybody knows what arigato means.
Well, that's
weird though. I don't know why.
There are certain words that are just they're Romanji versions of Japanese words, and I'm like, why? Why did you choose to do that?
I would like to know, hear somebody explain that, because that's really interesting.
It comes off very like nerdy, because it's like I said, it reminds me of like when people were fan subbing anime back in the day. Anyways,
when you said that at first, I'm like, why? Because it wasn't done well, but now I get, it sounds.
Some words aren't translated. It's weird. So, anyways,
I did like the campaign, which was weird. I wasn't expecting that. It has a more fleshed out campaign than I was expecting.
I mean, I can't say that about any Monster Hunter game. I don't pay attention to the story most of the time. It's not why I'm there. So
yep. I mean, I pay attention to world story a little bit, but it was pretty straightforward.
Monster breed too much and angry, kill them.
There's monsters. We got to hunt them and get better gear. And I'm like, all right, I'm down. This essentially is the same, but there's a bigger story happening that I think is kind of neat. And there's like monsters that are being revealed in ways that are like, part of the storyline that I think is pretty cool. And there's a fight that takes place in your hub, which I also thought was kind of neat. Not a big deal, but it's just neat that they even did that. I wasn't expecting it. And it does have like a big monster you have to fight at one point. That's more of just the situation and less of a like.
That's an interactive cutscene.
Yeah. But Monster had a similar thing.
Yes, they did.
So when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is their take on that. Okay, but yeah, just to cut it short, overall, I really enjoy this game a lot. I think it's really well done. I I love everything about it almost. I just think with time the game can become even better as they add more monsters, more Katakuri. That just never even occurred to me until they introduced the new one. I'm like, oh, they're gonna do that. That's fucking cool. I had no idea like that was the plan. And then more monsters, more weapon types. More weapon types I think would be really nice.
You say that about Monster Hunter every time one comes out, and it never happens.
Yeah, but Monster Hunter, at one point added the insect glaive.
Sure.
That wasn't a weapon
Sure.
at one point. And so, this game can do that.
Yeah.
I know there's a balancing act there, and they got to create a whole new
Play
style and a whole new, crafting tree of passives and stuff. But, roll this out every once in a while. It doesn't have to be in this game, but at some point it'd be nice.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see a Wild Hearts 2 for sure. I'd buy it. Yeah, really liked it. But that starting needs to get fixed, man, because it's fucking lame as shit. And for something so minimal, like a stutter, it's not even a regular stutter. It's just like it happens sometimes. They should really find out what that is and fix that. I know it's easy to just go, hey, fix that, but the game's out for a little bit now, and I feel like that should have been smoothed out within the first 2 weeks.
It's also kind of silly, and this is a broader gaming issue, but the amount of AAA games coming out for PC that have that particular issue, what's the? Why can't we figure that out? Indie games don't do that. Like, what the fuck's happening? So,
yeah, for sure.
Sorry,
it's amazing how many. And granted, AAA games are bigger, more ambitious games.
Sure, but the same
on a technical level, not on
companies.
Ideas.
Like, come
sure.
on.
Yeah. But
I love fucking Elden Ring, but that shit's got some optimization problems.
Yeah,
so
agreed. Yeah, overall, love the game. Great. Starter needs to get fixed.
Yeah.
So let's jump into recommendations. I think the easy one is if you're into Monster Hunter. This is, in my opinion, and you agreed, the best alternative that exists. So
for sure.
If you're looking for something that's like Monster Hunter, there's some games out there you can play, and you should check out most of them.
Or if you prefer something that isn't, because Monster Hunter's got kind of like a goofy element to it, and this doesn't so much. So you might prefer that, and this might be better for you.
Yeah, and that is kind of something I was going to bring up as well, is that Monster Hunter is definitely actiony, but there's a pacing to Monster Hunter's combat that's a little more slow than this game. This game feels like you're just beating the shit out of stuff, no matter what weapon you're using. Whereas in Monster Hunter, there's certain weapons I feel like you got to be transforming it, or you got to wait for the right timing, or using the fucking bagpipe, or
I love the hunting horn.
The hunting horn.
Yeah.
There's just that's really one of the biggest things about Monster Hunter outside of its monsters and its variety of monsters. But the weapons are so unique in Monster Hunter and have so much character that you really have to learn your trade in that game. This game, you have to learn how to use your weapon, but it is a hyper game. And so maybe if you were like maybe you tried Monster Hunter and you're like, I can't get into the combat. I don't want to learn how to use this thing. This game might be a good alternative because it's a little more action forward. And it's more about knowing how to use your Katakuri at the right time. So it might be a better game for you possibly, although I can just hear Monster Hunter fans telling me, no, play Monster Hunter, because I've heard plenty of people tell me that this game sucks because it's trying to be Monster Hunter. I'm like, I don't know. It's obviously inspired by it.
You can like multiple games. It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love Monster Hunter and I love this, so it's neither does anything to the other game. And competition's always good.
Yes.
The idea of one thing just being the only thing sounds so horrible. So if you like Monster Hunter, it's a big recommendation as somebody who does like Monster Hunter. Let's see. If you like 4-player cooperative action games, I would recommend it to you. If you like, this is a loose recommendation because you're not going to buy and play this game for this reason, but if you like the idea of this, I would recommend it to you. Being able to build stuff that stays there on maps, there's a sense of creativity you can have. A lot of people just put down something and just go, but you can get really creative with putting things down in this
is
game.
going to be a weird comparison, but it's very similar, like how Death Stranding operates.
Yeah, I brought that up when the game first came out, and some guy was like, "How is it like Death Stranding?" I'm like, "You build infrastructure to make getting around the landscapes easier for you, and it stays
sometimes is on other people's maps."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, lucid recommendation. If you like how getting around maps in Death Stranding was, you might like this.
Pretty
which is
similar.
Really a weird thing to say, but it's just true.
Yeah.
I feel like this game is kind of influenced by Death Stranding, which seems weird. It's like Monster Hunter and Death Stranding, which I love both those games, so that's another reason I like it. If you like social games, there's a social element to this. You run in there, people are fucking doing emotes, and they got their stuff set up in certain ways. It's kind of inviting to. So is Monster Hunter. Monster is also super community and social centric.
It's one of the few games I can play with. Not this one. I couldn't connect to people for some reason on Hearts, but I think the game's been out so long and the content I'm doing is just too old, which is kind of a weird problem to have.
Yeah, maybe.
Versus if I play Monster Hunter, I usually can always find someone. So, but again, that's not a knock. One game's new, the other's established for years and years and years.
100%.
It has a bigger audience right now. So,
especially now after World, it got huge. So,
but the whole point of that though was I could imagine, because it's a similar type of game, you hop into a random game in Monster Hunter and everyone's just trying to help each other get the mission done. I don't think I've run into situations where I felt like someone was being toxic ever in Monster Hunter, and I imagine it's the same in this. I didn't get to experience it, so I don't know. I played with people I knew, so I'm in voice chat with them anyways. So.
Been in a couple situations where someone will just drop out of the game when somebody's not doing well, which I hate.
But the difficulty drops at the same time. So
yeah, but it's just like lame that someone's like, "Oh, this guy's not doing well. I'm leaving." It's like that guy could be fucking new.
You're not getting punished though.
Sure.
Yeah.
But still lame. I think that's about it. I don't know how much. I mean, if you're not into the Monster Hunter formula outside of the weapons, because the weapons are different in the games. But if you're not into that formula, I don't know if you're going to be able to get into this game. But I think you should maybe check it out because it's not as. There's less weight on you as somebody who needs to know how to use their weapon in this game.
Depending on the weapon. The umbrella is a little more involved, I'd say.
They do vary, and you should know how to use your weapon, but I think Monster Hunter, some of the weapons are very daunting for new players, especially because I've seen people will be very quick to let you know you're not using your weapon correctly in Monster Hunter.
There's a lot of gatekeeping, unfortunately, with any big game like that, though. So.
Well, because they get excited because they know how to use the weapon, and you're not doing it, so they want to tell you, well, we're not doing it, and not even in a helpful way.
And that happens with MMOs and stuff, too.
In general. So, this game feels just a little, it's not, there's definitely some hard fights, so it's not like casual, but it does feel a little more accessible at the beginning to just get in and start hitting shit, so...
the early monsters, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think after Chapter 3, that's
I agree.
not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I agree. Any other recommendations?
Crafting. If you enjoy crafting gear and stuff like that, collecting parts and crafting, gathering stuff, etc., looking for collectibles. There's a lot of stuff to find on the maps. And if you enjoy boss fights, because that's pretty much the gameplay loop, is boss fights. Some people are into boss rushes. That's what this kind of is. So,
yeah. Anything else?
No.
All right, we talked a lot about this game. Let's grade it. I'll go first. I've said this before on TastyCast, so it's interesting. So I said on TastyCast I would give this an A, and I would give Monster Hunter an A, or Monster Hunter World an A+. That's relevant. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm going to drop it to an A- because I'm really upset about that stuttering. And I know it seems like a weird thing to be hung up on if it's a slight stutter, but I feel like by now it should have been fucking fixed. And once they fix that and smooth out connectivity issues that I've noticed, it's all small things. But I want to give this game an A, but I'm like pissed that they're not fixing it. And I haven't heard anything about it either. So I'm going to give it a strong A-. That I would like to be an A. But until they fix those problems, I'm kind of annoyed by that. So, but otherwise, it's a fantastic game. I love it. I have a lot of fun playing it. They've done a great job as an introduction to this series now with the content. There's a lot to do, a lot of things to unlock, a lot of ways to play. There could be more weapons, but the weapons they do have, they're all fun.
Let's be real. There could always be more weapons.
Sure. So. But yeah, some of the technical issues that apparently it's just plaguing PC gaming in general right now in the AAA realm, it's annoying, and they should be prioritizing getting this stuff fixed because It's the only time when I'm playing this game and having a blast that I will just get a little annoyed. I'm in the middle of a fight and something happens, and I'm like, that's fucking so annoying, dude. Like, get rid of that
Especially
shit.
in an action game.
Yeah,
come on.
It does affect gameplay. So, yeah, maybe I'm being a little hard dropping it down the whole thing, but
I think it's fair.
I think it's a problem they need to fix. So, yeah, would love to give it an A. It's an A minus as of right now.
So you're giving effectively what I would consider a broken game, an A still, an A range. So like, I think it's fair. You good?
Yep.
Sorry, I started talking. I didn't really check if you were done or not. I'm gonna give it a B. I think it is a good game. It has stuff about it I don't care for, and the stuttering absolutely is annoying. And I have had weird connectivity issues on net play as well, and some weird stuff that needs smoothed out. I think just in general in the game, nothing like detrimental. I'm giving it a B. I think that's a good grade, and I think it's got plenty of room to grow and thrive as a series. Hopefully, assuming people don't just gatekeep it out, which would be unfortunate. It is a solid game, and I think it has room in the ecosystem and has something to offer that the other major competitor that we keep bringing up doesn't have. So I would like to see both of them. I'd like them to inspire each other and both become better games. So
yeah, when people talk about like, that it's just Monster, I'm like, well, yeah, but this has the category, and whether you like it or not, I do like it. It's something that Monster Hunter doesn't have. That's good. I don't want Monster Hunter to have it. I'd be pissed if they implemented stuff like that, and vice versa. Like, they're similar, but they're on different paths, and it gives me a reason to fucking play them both.
Yeah. Well, especially because like games like this, you hit temporary ending points before the next content comes out. I mean, at this point, to speak of Monster Hunter again, I think Rise just had its last update, so now we're just waiting for another title to be announced. This game is getting updates, so you're done with Rise. You got something to play while you wait for next Monster Hunter.
It's great too. And that what you're bringing up is like, if you have done everything in Monster Hunter or Rise or World or whatever, and then you can go play this and then play Monster Hunter when fucking Wild Hearts 2 comes out, you'll be able to play that. And it just gives you more. If you like this game, it gives you more options to play.
If that gameplay loop is just like the thing you love, you just got more of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it doesn't have to be the same game. It still offers the same type of experience. And I'm someone like, I think Monster Hunter is better for me. But that doesn't mean I think Wild Hearts is bad. I think it's a good game.
I'm happy that Wild Hearts is like the first time it doesn't feel like Monster Hunter Light. Dauntless felt like Monster Hunter Light. Tokaiden felt like a lesser Monster Hunter, a more simple Monster Hunter. Tokaiden had a bunch of weapons in it, but like they're all just like fucking whatever, and like the combat wasn't good. I can't think of any other examples, but
there's
like
that Final Fantasy one on DS. I can't remember what it was called.
Which would have been cool to see like a new like modern console version of that, because it was a neat take, because it felt almost like an RPG.
And had the job system, to kind of play with. So.
But yeah, this is the first time I've played a Monster Hunter like that. I was like, no, this makes sense. This can be its own game.
Yeah,
it's not just like, well, we're gonna do the Monster Hunter thing, but we're not gonna put as much work into it. They had their own ideas that they threw in there, and I think it worked out really well. So
yeah, and it plays really heavily into like a lot of like Japanese like mythos and stuff like that. That you're going to get less of out of Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is definitely very like European, fantasy inspired. It definitely has Japanese stuff. Don't get me wrong.
Except for Rise, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but like wyverns, and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I think B's. I think is where I'm at. I think it could easily go higher.
That's a completely fair grade.
Especially even with updates, it could even go higher. To be honest, like they can do all sorts of stuff with it still. And I think it's a really good starting point for an IP. So,
yeah. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I just think I like the game more than like I thought I was gonna like it, and I like it more than I think the average person probably likes it. But like Josh, also, not to speak for him, he's not here grading this, but he also like really liked it, which I was like, oh, I'm not just crazy here, and like I don't want to speak for her, but I'm just gonna say you guys can take up with her. Sarah said she liked this more than Monster Hunter, and I was like,
which is great,
which
right?
is fine, yeah. But I'm like, you gotta keep that down. You can't say that in public, dude. Like I can't be seen with you. That's you're saying this shit, dude.
It's a matter of preference, right? And like
You get us killed.
they are similar games with some differences
Yeah.
that in gameplay. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm playing. I definitely feel like I'm playing something that's definitely inspired from
Yeah.
Monster Hunter, but I don't feel like I'm playing Monster Hunter. When I
Yeah,
play
whereas
it.
like Dauntless just felt like it was like a cheap Monster Hunter that was free to play.
I'm not gonna talk too much about Dauntless. I think it feels very different, even though like on the outside it looks like a Monster Hunter game, but it does not feel like a Monster Hunter game. when you
Well,
play
it feels like it feels like a less featured Monster Hunter.
yeah, and
in
I know,
every way.
I know the beginning of the game and the end of the game are completely different in that, so I can't speak on that part. But
I wonder where Dauntless is at now
they still release stuff for
in
it.
content, because when I played it for plenty of time. Anyway, this ain't Taste Cast.
Yeah.
That's our grades. You gave it a B. I gave it an A minus, a reluctant A minus. I want to give it an A. I like it that much, but they need to fix the goddamn game. It's inexcusable at this point. The game's been out too long for something that small to not be fixed. But yeah, anything else you want to say?
Stop releasing stuttery games, people.
Agreed. I think everybody agrees with that. Let us know in the comments what do you guys think about Wild Hearts. Did you play it? And what'd you think? And if you didn't play it, why didn't you play it? What do you like about the game? What don't you like about it? Let's talk about the katakuri. What do you think of it? I think that's going to be a huge factor in a lot of people's opinions on this game. And what do you think about the weapons? What do you think about the monsters? What do you think about the progression? What do you think about how they're supporting the game? Like I said, I fought one of the new monsters. I thought it was really neat. New katakuri stuff like the Beyblade. That's actually a lot of fun. Let me know what you think of it. And what do you think about the realm of Monster Hunter and Monster Hunter-like games? What's your favorite that's not Monster Hunter? Maybe you like another game that's not Monster Hunter, although Monster Hunter fans are pretty particular about just liking Monster Hunter. What's your favorite Monster Hunter? What's your favorite Monster Hunter?
I don't think I can answer that right now. I think Generations was really good. I think World would have been like amazing if the weapon skin variety was better.
Yeah, it lacks there, but I think as a complete package, World is probably the best made one. But
I really like the combat in Rise though.
But Rise, I don't like looking at Rise as much as World,
Sure.
but it does offer some fun gameplay elements.
Yeah, I just think I think they did a good job of making even like setup weapons feel less pausey.
Yeah.
I don't know what other word to use. They flow better. So
True. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Game of the Month. As always, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to check out our other episodes. Check out our socials and streams, link down below. Check out our Discord, link down below. You can talk to us anytime, all the time. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. If you prefer to listen to us in audio form, we have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel more than liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. If you're brand new, also check out my TikTok, link down below if you'd like to see my shorts, since I can't upload them to YouTube because YouTube won't let me for some reason. God damn it. My name's Seth. This has been Chevy. Thank you for joining me, Chevy. And thank you for joining us for this Game of the Month. And until the next one, have a good one, guys, and take it easy.